Many prophets, such as those mentioned in the Apocalypse of the Bible and by Nostradamus, have predicted that within the next stage of transition from the third dimension of consciousness into the fourth and fifth dimensions, large disasters will occur.
The Apostle John tells us in Revelation chapter 1 and verses 9, 10 and 11 that he was on the island of Patmos because of the Word of God, because of his faithfulness as a disciple of Jesus, because of his faithfulness as a prophet. When John focused upon the return of Jesus Christ the second time, he focused upon what we find in other places in the Bible about how Jesus will come and why he will come and what will happen when Jesus Christ comes. John in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 7 made it very clear that when Jesus Christ returns, every person who is alive on planet Earth at that time will witness that coming. Every person will see him come. If you go to the last verses in Revelation chapter 6, you have it very clearly stated that at the time of the coming of Jesus Christ there's going to be a massive earthquake. Every island will move out of its place. John uses the word saying that the heavens are going to roll back, as it were, and the glory of Jesus Christ and the Father is going to be revealed to people. Many people will be absolutely terrified by that event, and we read in Revelation chapter 6, in the midst of the earthquake and the sun going dark and the moon turning to blood and stars falling from heaven, you read of people who will be terrified and will be crying out to the rocks and the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits upon the throne and from the wrath or the judgment of the Lamb. The term Lamb is a symbol of Jesus Christ throughout Scripture. And so you read of the coming of Jesus Christ at that time. And then, of course, in answer to that question, who will be able to stand at that time, which is the question asked at the very end of Revelation chapter 6, you have the answer of Revelation chapter 7. You have those spoken of as the 144,000, those who receive the seal of the living God upon their foreheads, and you read of them further as the great multitude as you read through Revelation chapter 7. A very detailed description of the coming of Jesus is given to us in Revelation chapter 14, verses 14 to 20, where the coming of Jesus is described as a harvest.
If one compares all the prophecies of writings such as the Bible, the secret revelations of John, the Quran, as well as writings of recent seers, and well over 100 appearances of Mary until 1987, a shocking scenario of 3 large world events emerges. The 3 great judgments of the world stand for 3 large world wars, which in turn are fulfilling the group karma of whole nations. 2 of these world wars have already occurred. Many believe the third will not happen. But what is the contribution of each individual so that the divine in its grace extinguishes the karma of each individual and of the nations? All seers and the messages of our Mother of God speak of a 3rd large war which will start in Europe. In particular, they mention troops with the strength of 3 armies invading from the east, and after political unrest, the bloody fall of a leader overnight. It is said in these prophecies that within a very short period, as many people will die as in the First and Second World Wars together. Europe's capital cities are predicted to burn during a limited atomic holocaust. Out of these horror visions, it is clear that China and the United States of America will be involved, along with Russia and the Muslims. After fierce battles, all of them will resort to emergency atomic action. Consequently, the supernatural judgment will inflict natural disasters to put an end to these horrific developments. It will then separate the wheat from the chaff by causing a large earthquake and darkness for 3 days to put an end to it all. A a worldwide internal fire will be felt and seen by everyone, and the fall of deadly dust has been predicted to accomplish the remaining cleanup of the karmic execution.
There are prophecies in the book of Revelation about a big fire that will cleanse this earth. A very dramatic representation is given in Revelation 19 and 20, near the end of the apocalypse. In Revelation chapter 19, we read of the coming of Jesus, pictured as him riding on a white horse, a crown upon his head, and he's coming forth as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he comes to execute judgment against the beast and the false prophet. In other words, the two beast powers that are described in detail in Revelation chapter 13. The beast that comes up out of the sea is described as the beast, and the beast that comes up out of the earth in Revelation 13 verse 11 and following from there is described as the false prophet. And we find Jesus coming in Revelation 19 executing judgment upon the beast and the false prophet, and we read of them being thrown into a lake of fire at that time when he returns. And then at that time we read in Revelation chapter 20 that the dragon will be taken, thrown into a great abyss, and be held in that abyss for 1,000 years. And during that period of time, the dragon, described also as the devil, the deceiver, or Satan, will not be able to attack or deceive any person who is alive at that time. And then at the end of this 1,000 years, as you come through to the latter part of Revelation 20, you find that Jesus is pictured as returning to this earth, and he comes with his people, and a lake of fire comes and envelops the whole of the earth and purifies this earth. And so the sequence of events that we actually have in Revelation 19 and 20 is the second coming of Jesus, the beast and false prophet facing damnation, as it were, in this lake of fire, then the dragon held as a captive for 1,000 years, then Jesus Christ coming to the earth again with his people, and a lake of fire enveloping the earth and cleansing the earth. As a result of that, we find a new act of creation after this fire has enveloped the earth, where we read of a new heaven and a new earth.
All this has been repeatedly predicted by the seers, and all the prophecies which have been made at different times are roughly similar. Conspicuously, all agree on one thing, that these events will start at a time when all believe that peace is at hand. Is the future preordained, or have the seers seen God's master plan? Everything within the omniversum is subject to cosmic cycles. Creation delivers everything according to the principle of duality. As day follows night, a plan for the evolution of humanity's development exists. Likewise, in the plan of creation, there is a cosmic night and a cosmic day. The last cosmic night of creation lasted about 26,000 years. During this cosmic night, man was separated from his divine self. Since the 1980s, we have entered the so-called ending of the cosmic night. During this ending, the spiritual world will be testing everyone for the feelings in their heart. After the year 2011, a cosmic day will begin. This cosmic day will announce itself with a sudden, incredible light, and humanity will become conscious. The earth will be illuminated, and creation will reveal its completion. The final stone of completion of the four-sided Pyramid of Giza is the symbol for the completion of the process of becoming human. However, the final cornerstone of the fifth dimension, time, is still missing. Consequently, creation will find its completion in the return of the extraterrestrial gardens of evolution through the programming into the fifth dimension.
Now, speaking extraterrestrially, they are here to remind us that there are other things far beyond us which of course are necessary if we are to evolve into our rightful ascendancy in the things to come. In other words, moving from the third dimension into the fourth and the fifth dimension. UFOs per se have always been there. We have forgotten that because we have returned to amnesia and we have returned to illusion. We are now about to walk or talk or act out of that so that we become realism again, that indeed we have the powers that we once had, and we can take them into ourselves again to change the dilemma that we face as a nation, as a peoples, and as a planet. We must do this again as the people. We cannot rely upon our governments anymore. Governments basically are defunct. We don't like to think so, but they are. Governments are also a captive of many of the malefic extraterrestrials. That was true during the Third Reich. It is now true of the United States government, and I don't know how many more. It is time to turn to those who have our best interests at heart. And those who do have our best interests at heart are known as the guardian forces. The guardian forces outnumber the malefic or bad extraterrestrial forces somewhere around 10 to 1. And yet we do not turn to them, in time of need. Again, to invoke them, again, to get them to step in our direction and to assist us, we must do so through prayer and meditation and love and light and balance. And if we do that again, then we invoke the power, if you will, of the guardian forces. We give them the necessary power which they need to deter the malefic forces, including the wormwood planet. These things, of course, are very simple, and I think for some people they're too simple. They would rather think that we have to turn to some advanced type of technology or some advanced type of weaponry. Those days are over. If we are to graduate as a planet and a peoples, we must return to the godly principles that we once exercised and had when we first came here, or before we actually came here from the fourth dimension into the third. We must return to that godliness.
We are in the last days, and the battle of the spiritual powers to win over souls has started. Old and new prophecies are to be understood symbolically. The Last Judgment has already begun. The experience will be different for everyone. The time factor rapidly decreases during these last years, and every one of us will reap increasingly faster the harvest of the seeds that we have sown in order to fulfill our karma. A purification never experienced before will affect all areas of life. Apart from the external chaos caused by wars, earthquakes, and other environmental disasters, the truth of the so-called good citizen will fall apart. No one will be able to hold on to anything. Few will realize that we are right now living in the time where the souls will be separated.
Now, instrumental in that, of course, are the ones that we know as UFOs, or the extraterrestrial consciousness. We know, too, that there are two types of extraterrestrial consciousness. One is good, or you might say they have our best interests at heart. The other one does not, and they are the malefic ones. I don't want to go too far with that. I would only say that they represent the two faces of God. It is the same energy. It's our interpretation of that energy, and it's up to us to deal with it in a responsible way. I would like to lead this also into a prognostication which has been about for thousands and thousands of years. Going back to the references of the wormwood planet, I mentioned one, of course. I mentioned the Bible, Revelations chapter 8, verse 11. I would also like to make reference to the Sumerian text. If you were to review the Sumerian text, which is the first recorded history, of course, of what is known as wormwood, you will find then that it progresses up through the Chaldean chronicles, Babylonian chronicles, and on into the Judean culture and chronicles. And of course, the latest of that being the Bible under Revelations chapter 8, verse 11. Now, what is the wormwood planet? Well, there's many speculations about the wormwood planet, but I don't think that speculatively we can deny that it exists, because there's proof, although not written, but there's enough proof at hand and at large at this point in time that world government is fully aware of the so-called Wormwood Planet. It isn't the first time that the Wormwood Planet has visited our planet and caused mass devastation and chaos. It's been here, of course, over a period of thousands and thousands of years. And there's scientific proof and also materialistic proof that they have flipped the axis of this planet over 330 times in the past.
A new superhuman being will be born. Earth is now close to the birth of its new human being before she enters the full light of the day of the Golden Age. Dawn has already started. The ascension is the resurrection. Many are being called, but only a few are chosen to become the seed for the new mankind, because the spirits will soon be separated. The vampires will not survive the harsh light of the new day of creation. The change which the Earth will experience during the purification process by throwing off her ballast will be unbelievable. During this time, when the Earth, groaning, rids itself of the poisons which humans, in their blind ignorance, have inflicted on the planet, it will shake off this burden, and divine grace will help cleanse the lower astral collective body, all three-dimensional structures, with an indescribable fire. The time is near when the Earth will unleash the elements, and the angel of judgment will purify it through fire, water, and earthquakes. During her pain of giving birth, Mother Earth will suffer a near breakdown, which will culminate and end in the burning of all that is inferior. The darkness of this world, the afterbirth, will be burnt, and a new humankind will be born. Before this climax, there will only be two parties left, the three-dimensional and the five-dimensional people, who are able to integrate their light body. On the day X, the spirits will be separated. In the same way that it happened during the days of Noah, it will occur again during the days of the human son. They ate, they drank, they married until that day when Noah entered the ark and the arrival of the flood killed all. Just like it happened during the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought and sold, they planted and constructed every day. But the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur descended from the heavens and killed everyone. So it will happen when the Son of Man is revealed. Whoever will be on the roof on that day and leave his coat inside the house should not return downstairs to get it. And whoever is out in the field should not turn back. Just remember Lot's wife. I say unto you, during that night, when a couple will be in bed, one will be taken, the other left behind.
Jesus used Noah as an illustration of end times. He indicated that just as it was in the days of Noah with the flood, so at the end of time there would be devastation. And just as the flood cleansed the world of that time of sin, so with the coming of Jesus there will be a flood of fire that will cleanse the earth. One can visit the area of Mount Ararat, which is the area of eastern Turkey. Ararat, of course, covered the area of Armenia, Turkey, some of Iraq, quite a large area. And in the Tenderek Mountains there, across from Agridag, which is the mountain that is usually referred to as Mount Ararat today, there's been quite a bit of focus of attention upon a boat-like shape in recent times. But the evidence would indicate at this stage that that is not the Ark of Noah. The Ark of Noah was possibly, if we understand what the gopher wood was, and we don't, but if we go back to the original writings, the Ark of Noah was probably built out of papyrus reed. But this great flood deluged the world of that time and cleansed the earth. And Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man.
For the survivors of these events, it will be a new era of peace, of spiritual completion. The brothers of space will reveal themselves as the keepers of Christ, and a large white cross will be seen in the sky. Thousands of motherships in the formation of a flying cross will be seen in the sky to herald the return of the Christ. For the chosen ones, it will be important to pay attention to their intuition and to their dreams, because the higher self will be sending out impulses ahead of the disasters caused by humanity and triggered by nature, in order to be in the right location at the right time. Earth will be cleansed for the 7th time, and God within us will decide whether we will be the seed for perfected mankind.
The Earth's development in the material world can be divided into 7 successive cycles. At present, we are in the last stage of the 7th cycle. Each cycle was finished by a cataclysm on the Earth, but those who embodied the cosmic values were saved. Those were the people who had collected the necessary energy vibration for the new cycle. It was always the result of individual experiences. Activated energetic channels and super sensors are the consequences of these changes in a man's body. People receiving messages through their super sensors also receive information about places where certain disasters will take place. It refers to Japan, Great Britain, and some European countries.
Narażone na pogrążenie się w odmętach wody.
Much information we receive during our dreams, when the body is relaxed, calmed, and our intellect and personality do not disturb us. We become open to all impulses which can reach us from the outside. Everything that comes during a dream, which seems to be unreal, in many cases shows us situations which will happen here on Earth. Please pay special attention to your dreams. From many messages, we can learn how in practice the Earth will enter the anti-material world. The last material cycle finishes in the 80s and 90s, so we are just in the center of the universe. We are entering the antimatter. The Earth will move differently in the antimaterial side than at the moment. This movement will have a shape of the number 8, rotating not around the Sun, but at first around 2 energetic centers. One of them will be the Sun, and the second will be Saturn. The rest of the planets will also rotate in the way of the number 8 shape, around the centers mentioned before.
The coming years will decide how we will experience the external changes. We have the choice either to face the events in fear or to see the cataclysmic conditions of the prophecies of the apocalypse as a necessary renewal for mankind. Because it is up to us how we view the purification. Mother Earth itself will try to awaken us as softly as possible when she gets her planetary contractions for the birth of a more conscious humanity. The world has received many warnings from saints, extraterrestrials, and prophets. The world has been given many signs. However, at the end of time, everyone will recognize that which he did not want to see. At the time of the ascension, it will be up to us to realize that 1/3 of the air, 1/3 of the water, 1/3 of the flora and fauna, and 1/3 of mankind has left the planet, as indicated in various apocalyptic prophecies. A smooth transition would occur if the light workers and humans, through liberation of their active love, and through the call for divine grace, and if millions of people were willing to work on themselves in order to participate in a mass ascension. This would weaken the global events and divert the karmic release more towards the individual human beings. The present readiness for this, however, is only too limited, and Mother Earth will shake us to wake us up.
Much of the information does indicate that parts of continents will sink. Certainly the first chapter of the book, Zukunft Vision, talks about my personal experience of living through what I felt was the sinking of much of the lands of California. And I've also done research then into what Edgar Cayce has said about Japan, or parts of Japan going into the sea. And finally, the work of an American channel named Laurie Wilkins Toy, whose Freedom Star map shows even part of Australia being split in half, a good deal of Russia and the northern part of Europe going under the water, and parts of North and South America. All of this would be compensated by new land, however, coming up in the Pacific, a new Lemurian type of land, I guess, and possibly some new land in the Atlantic that might be considered to be a new Atlantis, so that the relationship between continents and the sea would remain pretty much constant over time.
The current events on Earth should surely wake up every sensitive person to the fact that we are in the seventh ending of time, and that several prophecies have already partially been realized, or are bound to happen very shortly. The cyclical apocalypses of creation are like a school of life, where one is promoted to the next grade at the end of term. A certain percentage of mankind is not capable of ascending to the next grade because of a lack of preparation. After their present lifetime, they are going on vacation for a long recovery in the astral world. After a good recovery, the souls repeat the failed school year on other planets and then move on to new cycles of incarnations. The positive and the negative on this planet are continuously strengthening. We receive daily news of earthquakes from around the planet, flood disasters, volcanic eruptions, well over 100 war zones, and many massacres are causing new famines, misery, and new migrations of nations. We are receiving daily news of new environmental disasters. The ozone hole spreads out at a frantic pace. The jungles which represent the lungs of the earth are being cut down globally. The loss of trees through environmental destruction is escalating. The greenhouse effect and the Earth's temperature are increasing globally. Thus, the climatic zones are shifting so fast that we can already observe the change. Snow is falling in areas where there has not been any before, and elsewhere it is warming up in areas where it used to be cold. The ecological balance has already been disturbed to such a degree that thousands of species of animals and plants have already apparently disappeared from this planet forever. Other species are in plague proportions, as happened in ancient Egypt. We seem to be suffocating in our own rubbish and poison dumps. Millions of people are infected with new and apparently incurable diseases. Raw materials seem to be exhausted, and the Earth is experiencing a population explosion.
Yes, I've been working for a number of years on future progressions. This work culminated in the book Mass Streams of the Future, in German Zukunftsvisionen der Menschheit. And the method that was used was started by Dr. Helen Wambach to take people into past lives, It's a light trance state used in groups where we would then ask very ordinary questions of people once they were taken into a specific future time period. The numbers of people that we worked with were over 2,500, and actually in the book we have results from about 500 out of that group. In part that's because many people didn't find themselves coming back in the time periods that we initially asked them. This was one of the first and rather surprising results of our research, that so few people found themselves coming back to the earth or to the material plane at the time of a couple hundred years from now. The fact that there are so few people that seem to come back in the time periods that we worked with could lead one to believe that there might be something like an apocalypse in the future. However, I think that it's a question of a choice that we have in this matter, and possibly it's not the kind of apocalypse people might be thinking of. There are many conditions that could lead to a drop in the population. For example, we could have some worse plagues or worse illnesses than the ones we've already had. We could have, of course, atomic war, or we could have natural catastrophes that might also occur, or some combination of these. I'm not sure that anyone can answer, will there be exactly an apocalypse, but certainly the data that comes out does indicate that there will be great changes taking place.
The world is becoming more hectic. Everything is about survival. Money, power, addictions, and distractions have become the companions of mankind. Some secret organizations want to gain absolute control over humanity. Religions are calling for a holy war against dissentient brothers. During a dark age, the human mind is directed towards materialism. The negative attributes of his ego are fear, guilt, control, calculation, envy, security, dominance, pride, arrogance, manipulation, and striving for power. His helpers are the present, exclusively materialistic social systems. Unlimited growth is like a cancer of mankind within the planetary organism called Earth. Fear for jobs, fear for supplies, fear of diseases. Fear seems to be the prime motivation of all social life.
My personal feeling about the future is that it's coming along pretty fast, and much of the research that we did for the book was done in the 1980s and showed that in the future times there would be a series of great changes, including particularly ecological changes. Perhaps the most positive part was that very few people, 1 or 2 out of the 500 or 600 that we worked ultimately with, only saw some kind of nuclear holocaust. Very, very few people saw that. It doesn't seem to be our future. I personally feel that we have 2 or 3 more years to do the preparations that are necessary and possibly to work with the energy fields to change some of these catastrophic situations for the future, or they will be upon us before we realize it. Certainly by the end of this decade.
Everything looks very negative, and among the scientists with inside knowledge, the opinion is spreading that it may be 5 minutes past midnight for the future of Earth and mankind. The train has already departed. Mankind now wants to enter adulthood and has apparently tilted the balance of the planet. Humanity is already stuck in a crisis of evolution, and for some the downfall of mankind has already begun. For others the ascension of mankind has started, the great transformation. So the changes on the outside and the inside have already begun, and yet, imperceptibly, in this darkness, a little light has been kindled in order to point out the way to mankind. The arrival of the incarnated light workers, extraterrestrial contents of consciousness, who are to prepare the seed for the new mankind. The pole change towards the spiritual, towards a new golden era has already started. Instead of living in primeval fear, This new generation is intended to live in primeval trust. Indeed, all the negative events are justified in the cosmic plan, which we do not comprehend with our mind. Because nothing exists outside of the divine plan. Even the chaos is the new order.
Hello, brothers, hello, sisters. Grüß Gott. I'm Carl, and I am like I am. Just like I am. Thanks God. I know now who I am. Yeah, I'm love. I'm love, and nothing else is love. Like we all. Like we all. I have nothing to assert, no. Nothing to blame. Nothing to judge. Nobody to accuse. Nobody to accuse and nobody to convince. Just to be as I am. As an example. Just an example. So I did advertising. I made commercials for products which we need, like cancer. Cancer. The materialized illusion. The materialized illusion around us. Yes, I didn't know about causes effect. I didn't know about the law of the echo. And suddenly, I got it into me that we are all one, one with everything, and we will unite each other like we never did before. Ha! The artists. The artists. And everybody, last not least, is an artist, yeah? And love artists we are. We are love artists. We come together as children, as we are, just as children, because we are children forever and forever and forever. And we will play the game, we will play, and the game called love. Love and nothing else as love. Yeah, this is the game. And we will get free of the materialized illusion around us, the luxury, the materialism which we need, like cancer. No sickness anymore. No sickness anymore. And I got the message into me that fear is an illusion. Fear is an illusion. That's wonderful to know. To be ill is an illusion. To hate is an illusion. To make profit is an illusion. And what you see materialized, not in tune with the nature on Mother Earth, is just a materialized illusion and will disappear very, very soon. And this is just the law of the echo, the law, the only law we have. It's the game, yeah, it's the game. But so many forgot about the game, these periods of time, about the game, you know. So we played war, one after the other. And the war was happening us. And we look around us here, then we see war games everywhere, war. It's just an illusion. Yeah, war is just an illusion. So we killed, and the main part of us kill animals, yeah. Also our brothers, our sisters, yeah. And we didn't know that we kill ourselves? We didn't know. Whatever we kill ourselves. And whatever we do with the nature, we do it with ourselves. Yeah, we do it with ourselves, because we are the nature, we are the land, we are one with everything.
The continent of Atlantis was an island which lay before the great flood in the area we now call the Atlantic Ocean. So great an area of land that from her western shores those beautiful sailors journeyed to the South and the North Americas with ease, in their ships with painted sails,